sacred space. I am so happy to have with me Cantor Michael Casper. And Michael, tell us about the Peace Studies program at AJR.
Hi, Elizabeth. First of all, thank you so much for having me back. I really appreciate it. Peace Studies at AJR is something that I'm amazingly proud of, both for AJR's willingness to go with my vision and for the fact that I think we are probably the only seminary in the country, maybe even the world, that features peace studies, conflict resolution as part of our core curriculum. It's just a really fabulous and fantastic thing, and I'm just proud of it.
How did it come to be, and what prompted you to initiate the program?
So probably about 5 years ago now, as I was thinking about our curriculum and thinking about what we wanted to add and take away from our cantorial curriculum, it occurred to me that there were a couple of things that I had some passion about that weren't being covered. I wanted our cantorial students to have some more familiarity with Talmud. They needed to study Talmud. That was important to me. And I had a passion for conflict resolution and peace studies. Maybe because of the fact that I'm also a social worker and a psychoanalyst before I was ever a cantor or came to AJR. And maybe just because that's in my personality and in my nature, but it was just important to me. And I felt like the cantors especially have a voice that's made for conflict resolution. And we are underutilized. Professionally, cantors are underutilized. We get to chant, we get to lead prayer, we get to sing beautiful songs, but our voices can bring peace. And that's something that's just really important. And it's kind of what I'm interested in.
It's a great gift to be able to have the power of the voice in order to elicit emotion, connection.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an incredible thing. I know also prior to your work at AJR and studying to be a cantor, you were a dancer.
I was.
And I wonder if also that came into play just in the world of art, music and dance.
It was obvious to me that my career in dance was so important to me, and the life that I led prior to ever being a social worker, ever being a psychoanalyst, ever being a cantor, ever being interviewed for this with you right now, that life as a dancer was very, very, very special. And it was about being with people in a way that you don't normally get to be with people. And performing and rehearsing with people and figuring things out and working collegially and having conversations that were deeper than words. Using your body to dance and using your voice to sing aren't so dissimilar. And it was a magical and special time, as I think this is a magical and special time for me.
And it is very special. I know in cooperative singing, cooperative creating, we all are so different from each other, and we need to see each other and hear each other and honor each other in the process in order for the outcome to be beautiful. Tell us about the professors at AJR who are involved in the Peace Studies program, and if you would say a little bit about them. I know we have interviews set up with those people, and I'm very excited to meet them.
Yeah. The people that are attached to this project at AJR are really masters at what they do, and I could not be more proud of who they are and of the fact that I know them and are able to work with them. We have 3 courses that are required for our cantorial students. The first course is Peace Studies from a Jewish perspective, meaning what are the core texts? Where can you find textual information about peace and also about war? You find it in the Talmud, you find it in Bible, in the Tanakh. And the person that we have to teach that piece of that course is Mark Gopen. And Mark is sort of the granddaddy of Jewish authors and activists in conflict resolution all over the world. If you Google conflict resolution Jewish, you're going to get Mark Gopen. He's written many of the books, and he's just a treasure. Another teacher that we have is Rabbi David Marcus. David is not only a rabbi, but a judge in the New York court system, and teaches a course for us on community and what conflict resolution and peace studies means communally. How do you make peace between congregants? How do you make peace between the clergy and a board? How do you make peace on a grand stage and on a small stage? And that course is being offered right now in the fall. And then our third course is Peace Studies and the Use of the Cantorial Voice. And for that course, we have had our Rabbi Cantor, both Neil Blumoff, who lives and works in a congregation in Austin, Texas. These are people that I'm thrilled to know and to have teaching in the program. One of my heroes, before this idea was ever a germ in my mind, is a Iraqi Israeli artist, Yair Dalal. And he's a hero because he's dedicated his life to making music in the service of peace and bringing people together. And Yair was really instrumental in helping me think about what AJR might offer its cantorial students in the way of peace studies and conflict resolution. And he's a very important person to this project.
That's great. Michael, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for bringing this program to AJR. I know that for years to come, it will be part of the legacy of AJR and of all the students who participate in this incredibly inspiring program.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
It gives me great joy to welcome to Sacred Space Rabbi Dr. Mark Gopen, Director of the Center for World Religions, Diplomacy, and Conflict Resolution at George Mason University in Arlington, Virginia. He's also a professor at AJR. And Mark, welcome to Sacred Space.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here.
So tell me a little bit about the class that you're offering at AJR, and if you'll get into the subject matter a bit, that would be amazing.
Well, the subject matter is something that I've been researching and studying as a rabbi and then as a professor for a good many decades. And I've been studying the basis, the relationship between conflict analysis and resolution as a field of intellectual study that has masters and PhDs around the world at this point. And at the same time, its relationship to thousands of texts in Judaism on peace building and particularly on conflict resolution, conflict prevention, conflict management, and reconciliation. And so there's many texts in the Talmud. There's many texts in Torah. And what I do is I analyze with the class systematically these texts in their relationship to cutting-edge science and cutting-edge ethics, because there's now an integration in a very exciting way between ethics and neuroscience on how we can create and generate the most compassionate and intelligent responses to difficult human situations of conflict and have people come out healthier and happier from that. We do talk about some of the worst situations in the world and genocides and post-genocide. But the idea is that even within these worst situations, as Viktor Frankl, who was a secular Jew, noticed, many decades ago, even in the worst situations, there is an opportunity for meaning, for purpose, and for positive change. And now we're doing this in a deeper science way based on contemporary science.
Would you share with our listeners some more about peace in the world and what is reasonably attainable through this work and what your hopes are through this work?
Right. Well, I purposely decided over many decades ago to not be an armchair philosopher of ethics. I went to war zones. I have thousands of students around the world from every war zone, every conflict zone on earth. I have been myself in war zones in the Middle East, in Syria, we're now starting work in Poland with teaching right on the edge with Ukrainians and Poles. I work with survivors from genocides in Bosnia. We work in Bosnia. And everywhere you go, you have to really test the legitimacy of whether this Talmudic statement really makes sense in this environment. Is it sensitive? Is it possible? Because, abstract notions of forgiveness, apology, repentance, they have to make sense in the worst kind of situations, or they don't make sense at all. And so we test that and we see, well, what's missing here? What's possible? What can you do even in the worst situations to make things better? Because history is just filled with tragedies where people had vision. They used imagination and the higher parts of the brain to imagine a different world in which they lived, and the way in which you get from A to B. One of the great theoreticians of this is actually a Holocaust survivor, Raphael Lemkin, who devised all of the genocide laws internationally. And those laws have been very effective at helping prevent millions of people from dying, because war criminals, and there'll always be some war criminals, think twice now before being caught. And it was all his vision at the United Nations with the rule of law to get that into reality. I work more on the psychological, ethical aspects of how each one of us behave and how we can take family conflicts to a better place, how we can prevent them in the first place, with a much greater attention to rabbinic values of compassion, care, gemilut chesed, bestowal of kindness, positive gestures that are surprising, pursuit of peace as a sacred value. All of these things change the nature of relationships when they're put into practice. So and then I've married that to the cutting edge neuroscience on what we see in where compassion pathways are, but also where distressful pathways are when people are exposed to pain and their empathy, and to help people understand the difference between empathic distress, which depresses people, makes them cynical, even angry, versus compassionate care, which actually gives people strength and joy. We can see it in the brain operating in a different way and with a completely opposite effects on the metabolism. And so we actually have a marriage of good medicine and health together with good ethics. And I feel that this is going to give our students the strength to teach their spiritual values with a great deal of confidence in the good science that supports them. And it's more persuasive to a secular world and to people who are kind of burnt out from looking at catastrophes all around them and don't feel like there's any way out.
Your ultimate goal for the class, for the world at large, for what our rabbinic and cantorial students will take away after this class, if you could speak to that a tiny bit, that would be great.
Well, in my experience, every one of us has an impact in ways that we can never imagine, in terms of the social network of change, in terms of even the physics of how we impact the world. We don't even know what our impacts are, but if we work harder on every moment, in the interaction of that moment, in the interaction of care, we never know whether we are establishing the next leader of the world who's going to know how to teach compassion, who's going to know how to be more effective at unifying people who are clashing over ideology, over economics, over scarce resources. So this is a skill that I think it's quasi-utopian, because it is a belief that the more of us that have these skills, the more that we humans can evolve into nonviolent societies and into mentally healthy societies.
Amen. And kol hakavod to you for this difficult and inspiring work that you're doing in the world and at HIR. And I hope to see you at HIR in the future. Thank you so much for being with me today and for speaking with us and sharing your knowledge with us on Sacred Space.
Good. Thank you very much.
We now welcome Yair Dalal to our program. Yair is a professor of music worldwide, and we are so excited to hear more about Yair's story. So welcome, Yair.
Thank you very much.
So I would love to hear how you got involved in linking your music work with peace work, if you'll share that story.
Yeah, well, it's an old story and also a little bit long, but I try to make it short. When I studied, I started to play violin when I was 6 years old, and when I joined the Israeli army in '73, which we called the Yom Kippurim War, it was the '73 war, I stopped, of course, playing the violin. But what's happened in '82, there was something, again, there's war all the time in the Middle East, one more war. And there I decided that if I'm staying alive, I will dedicate myself to music and peace. And this is what I did. I mean, after some months in Lebanon, when I came back to Israel, I decided that this is what I will do. And I started to study to be a music teacher and to dedicate myself to music that can get people together from different cultures, especially from Arab and Jews. And also, you know, my ancestors, my family came to Israel from Iraq, from Baghdad. So I'm familiar with the Arabic music, Middle Eastern music. So I started to use this knowledge to teach, in the beginning, children, to get them together. And this actually, after, in the 90s, it was the big project with Oslo Accord. So it was the start. '82 was the start of linking together music and peace. Not only music, not only peace, but the two of them. Because, you know, there is a sentence that we say that music get people together, bring together. Also in Arabic, there is a sentence like this. And this was the start. And from there, there's almost 40 years, maybe more, of hard work, but good work. But this is the power of music, you know. This is the power of music. When you start to play, you forgot. When you start to play, you start to hug. When you start to play, you start to love. And everything, like all the boundaries or all the walls are just falling down. And this is the power of it.
It's an amazing visual that you bring to us and bring such great hope with it. Tell me a little bit about the commission for the Oslo Accords and how that arrangement came to be, the commission came to be.
Yeah, well, it was 30 years ago. One day I get a call when I'm milking my cows. And on the other side of the line was Maestro Zubin Mehta. And actually, I didn't believe that it's him. So I hang out in the first place. He said, this is, can I speak to Mr. Yair Dalal? This is Maestro Zubin Mehta from LA. And I was laughing. I said, oh, come on, somebody's tricking me. But it was him. And he asked me to join a choir of Arab and Jews children and to compose a peace song for the Oslo Accord, because he's going to conduct the Oslo Philharmonic Orchestra. And I said yes. Well, I said yes, not because I wanted to do it so much. It was a very short time, because the cows was waiting. So I said, okay, I will do it. Okay, I will do it. And then I said, okay, how can I do it now? How can I get 50 Palestinian children? It was very, very hard those times. But I had some friends in Palestine, and they helped me. And we got 50 children from Palestine and 50 children from Israel. And we had the song, Zaman al-Salam, Time for Peace. And we wrote the orchestration for the Oslo Philharmonic. And then we went on the airplane and get to Oslo, and was a big, big event. And actually, this event was, I think, the start of my worldwide career. Because before that, I was hesitating. I didn't know if I want to be an artist or not to be an artist, to stay a teacher, to live in a community, to milk cows in the desert. I really didn't want, I didn't know. And Oslo was a real open up. When I came back to the kibbutz, I said to myself and to the cows, I have a very important mission. And from that moment, I realized that peace and music is going together. And my last composition, a few months ago, called No One Should Die, for an orchestra and in a authentic ensemble with Arab and Jews together.
Amazing. Well, I wish you Godspeed with all of your work, and hope to see so much more of it in the public eye, because it's so badly needed on Earth.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Safe travels to you. And
thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks for joining us.
We stay in touch. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. We're so happy to have with us now Dr. Leah Kasorla, who's a Kolbo student at HAR. Welcome, Leah. Tell us what it's like to be a student in the Peace Studies program and how that experience has been for you.
My first course that I took was actually about peace studies within a congregation with Rabbi Marcus. And it was really great to learn like tools and actual functional ways to deal with different kinds of conflicts within a congregation. And then to take that knowledge and take the class with Dr. Rabbi Mark Gopin, which dealt more with world level conflict resolution. So for me, it kind of rounds out that Jewish education in a way that makes applicable the ways to cope with the harder parts of the work that we do as clergy. I have like all of Rabbi Dr. Gopin's texts. I have all of them. But there's one that has to do with music and conflict resolution. And of course, as someone studying, both for cantorial and rabbinic ordination, that really very much spoke to me. I think that music does the same thing as poetry. It completely elides the linguistic filtering systems that we have and digs directly into the emotional systems as they function. And you can use music really to lower the nervous system so that the autonomic nervous system has a chance to do the kind of healing that's necessary for conflict resolution. And music does that in a way that really reaches across multiple cultures, making it a much more powerful tool. We start classes with some breathing and some check-in, and usually some music in order to create that space where people can be emotionally vulnerable, which is really a requisite for learning. Once everyone has sung together, once we've brought ourselves into a synchronized heart rate, which synchronizes a lot of other things in us as well, it lowers the autonomic nervous response because you cannot actually sing in a stress state. And so doing the work of singing helps to lower that stress level, helps to synchronize those heartbeats, and gets everyone into a position where they have that ability to be interactive without feeling the defensive moment.
Beautiful explanation. And as I think about it, it's so profound, and I know it to be true. Dr. Leah Casorla, thanks for being with us, and we wish you all the best of luck in your studies and in your Kolbo work out in the world.
Well, truly my pleasure, and I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I appreciate your music, so thank you very much.
Thank you. We are so fortunate now to have Rabbi David Evan Marcus with us. Rabbi Marcus was ordained at Aleph, both as a rabbi and as a spiritual director, and he holds multiple other degrees in other areas. Welcome, Rabbi David Evan Marcus.
I am delighted to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
So I know that you are teaching a class at AJR in their Peace Studies program. I'd love to hear about it and about the pieces of the syllabus that are meaningful to you and about how you got into this line of work.
Oh, what a great knot of questions. So just a bit of background. I occupy an unusual place in the tapestry of Jewish life. For whatever reason, I believe I'm the only person fulfilling an oath of office on the one hand, but also serving as clergy in a congregation at the same time. And because I bring both of those skill sets and both of those orientations to hopefully everything that I do, I found myself being invited to help pioneer one of the classes in AJR's Peace Studies curriculum. The course that I am offering in the Peace Studies department is nominally Peace Studies 2, but it's really character, conflict, and community leadership. It's about how one's individual character traits, doing some work through the Musar movement of character building, bears on how we approach conflict and what that implicates for how we interact with the communities of which we're a part, that we serve, and that we help lead. In this, it's real easy in spiritual life to say that peace is the goal. And I believe that peace is the goal. But I understand peace to be three-dimensional. Peace is not just an absence of conflict. That's just accommodating what anybody else thinks. That's just getting out of the way. Conflict isn't inherently bad. We've got a whole Torah that's full of conflict, some of it by dint of the voice of God themselves. So we as hope mongers and peace bringers need to consider, where do we seek conflict in our lives? How do we deal with conflict that is foisted upon us. When is conflict even strategically wise for the spiritual evolution of a community? Nothing changes by staying the same, and sometimes, quite often, change is hard. So this is one part internal life and one part projecting internal life onto best practices and skills in navigating change, being a change agent, dealing with difficult subjects like money and power, dealing with boards and the succession of organizations that is natural in the flow of not just Jewish life, but all nonprofit life, and bringing it together in a way that is holistic and ultimately not just peace, shalom, but wholeness, shlemut.
If you were in an elevator and you said, here's my roadmap to peace to peaceful conflict resolution, would there be like an ABC that you would quickly share with someone if you were giving them your gems of knowledge?
So being clergy is learning to walk, chew gum, juggle, and whistle all at the same time, right? We need to be aware of who we are and how we are as our own selves. And anytime we're in relationship, that's on the table. We are also called to understand how we are in our roles, which hopefully won't be too differentiated from ourselves, because we don't cease to be ourselves when we are in role. So the first thing we need to do is be authentic within ourselves and make our sense of role both professional and also cleanly authentic to who and how we aspire to be in the world. That's part one. Part two is to make sure that is both deeply integrated into how we serve, but also wisely differentiated. That is to say, if there's conflict in a workplace, if there's conflict on a board, for us to be a calm, non-anxious presence, to use some of the language of pastoral care, it means that we need to be somewhat separated emotionally, but not so uninvested emotionally that we just fly above it and we can't touch and be touched. Then there's to understand the role of the sacred in all of this, or at least to seek it. Because if we approach conflict and personality and collectivity through the lens of our highest aspirations, whether that's ethics, God, morality, holiness, what have you, it will change how we walk in the world. With that, then we can bring on best practices, ways to approach conflict, when to hold them and when to fold them, understanding the flow of Jewish life as a purveyor of both peace and conflict. A lot of communities and people bring forward ancestral trauma. What effect does that have on how we approach community, decisions, money, power? And then how do we bring those to contexts where we really want to see an organization evolve, or where we're forced to evolve by, a pandemic, a fire, a flood, we lost the book, someone died, someone got fired, there's a change in leadership. All of that's going to be inherently disruptive. So peace-informed leadership asks those 4 levels. And the course that I've developed and will now be teaching for the second time brings all of those threads forward simultaneously and hopefully leads participants to an integration of self and role that is useful both in their clergy spiritual formation and also in the communities and service contexts in which they already find themselves.
So before we close for today, are there any other critical pieces that you would want to share with our audience about your work in this field?
In this field, peace studies is in some ways an evolving field where we are all pioneering the work right now. It isn't every seminary that offers a peace studies class, never mind a whole department. So I really tip my kippah to AJR for investing in this area. It helps to create transformational leaders and not just competent leaders. It's the person who can be with the tight spots, both within ourselves, in another, in a congregant, in a community, and in context, that can help to transform them.
Another very exciting initiative by AJR and the AJR community. Rabbi David Evan Marcus, thanks for being with us and wishing you all good things.
It's my great, great joy. Thank you, Cantor Elizabeth.
If you enjoyed today's program and you're interested in finding out more, go to ajr.edu for more information. I'm Elizabeth Sternlieb, and this is Sacred Space.